All right, so we're going to try to finish this up with our last shape, which unfortunately is kind of probably the more challenging one, which is obviously the sphere. Um, the only reason that I say it's challenging is because even though we're making a guess here about where the shadow should go, we really don't know where to start and stop a lot of the things. So we've got to kind of take a step back every once in a while, look at it, and try to figure out what's the best place to put things. As far as your darks, your lights, how dark, how light. So this one, you're going to have to take a little bit of time on this and really work with it. So the steps are still going to be the same that you've done with the other shapes that you've done, meaning we're going to paint right over our shadow here with something in a mid-range. So again, the whole point of our value scale was to give us color choices down here. So again, we're going to kind of be over here, a little bit on the watery side. And we want to put this second coat, this second color on. And like I said, I'm going to use a little bit more water when I do this. Okay, so I'm going to paint up here. And again, remember we had to make a kind of a best guess when we did the other shapes, whether or not this was a good color. For you folks, the fact that you're doing the reds, the yellow, I mean, not yellow, you're not doing yellow. The red, the blue, the purple, those right out of the jug, well, it's perfect. It's exactly what we want to do. So please continue to do that. Now, when I get down here to my dark stuff, you see how this is getting kind of sketchy? So I'm going to go with water, tiny bit. Not a big sloppy brush, just a tiny bit here. And I do need to make sure, like I've done before, I've got to stop where the edge is for the shadow and the object. So I'm going to kind of do that first so I know where to stop as I try to fill this in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more paint up here. Now, since this is sitting on top of the background, when you come around your edges here, you want to make sure that you're being incredibly neat, because you don't want to go outside the lines, and of course you want it to look round. Okay, that's going to be the whole point of this. So you're going to need to take a little bit of time adjusting your edges, and then this would be the time where you would fix anything where either you went outside the lines or if anything was crooked. This is when you want to fix those things. I have to move my water cup here. Okay, so obviously the color part at the top needs a second coat, as it would. But then we can't just leave that shadow at the bottom just dark and black like that, because that looks very odd. And the fact that it has a solid line to it makes it even look weirder. Okay, so none of those things can stay like that. So we're going to do our second coat of our mid-range color here. I'm fixing my edges so that they look a little bit better. And then I'm putting color on top of our shadow. And again, I know I think in some of the examples that I saw, some of the things people were showing me, I'm sorry if me doing gray is confusing, because your shapes are going to stay the same color as everything else. They're not going to be gray shapes. And I'm having to do a couple of extra steps just to make sure that I've got the right layering going on with this. So hopefully that's not too confusing. I would hope that if any of you were unsure about what to do, like with your green or something, you would say, Miss May, can you post something that just shows you doing green? Because that would make more sense to me. More than happy to do that. All right, so my first go through on this is a little bit slower because I'm trying to get my edges nice. And it looks like I did kind of make a lighter color than I have before, which is actually pretty good because I can see the gray through it, the dark underpainting that we did. So it's already got a nice dark base to it. All right, so again, I'm going to use a tiny bit of water. So this paint's going to move a little bit better. Because you definitely want it to be pretty smooth. That's going to be the whole point. Okay. So I may run into the same problem that I did on all my other shapes, where what I'm up against, like my background color and the shape color, are really, really similar. But again, we'll adjust that later. That'll be the last thing that'll get adjusted. All right, so we've got our first color down. And now what I'm going to do with the gray, because I know that that's a pretty good color in the middle, is I definitely need a color that is darker and I need a color that is lighter. Okay, so I'm going to use a bit more black, because also, see my shadow over here kind of looks kind of funky. So I know I need a dark gray. And I'm just going to go ahead and pre-make those. I would suggest that you did the same thing in your tray. So whatever color it is that you're using, go ahead and pre-make that. I know this isn't going to be dark enough, so let's do a couple more. Okay. So I'm going to do my dark one here. And this is really something you need to do when you're doing the sphere, is have all your colors already ready to go, because you're going to go from light to medium to dark to try to get these guys to all blend together. So you want to have them kind of ready to go. Now, one thing that we've also talked about, though, is you can blend right on the shape. So if that's easier, then I would do that. And I'll show you what I mean about that. So I had light on my brush last, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in up here. Not all the way to the edge. We're going to do some blending with that. Now, this should still be, this medium color should still be wet, kind of. So we're going to go ahead down here, and we're going to put what should be our highlight. But then I'm going to wipe some paint off my brush, because I got way too much going on here. And see if I can blend now this out to the end. So I'm going to take that medium color and kind of drag it back in. Into this really white area. So these guys they're kind of close. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to see if I can drag this down into that medium color and have it kind of blend in. Okay. So the one thing I'm concerned about right now is, as far as I can see, these are really, really close in color. So I might take a little bit of a darker. Just to make my this middle part of this sphere, just be a little bit deeper. And use a little bit of water, just because things are getting kind of sticky. And again, because I think that my two colors that I made here are very, very, very close. Okay, so again, I'm going to get some paint off my brush and see if we can soften up that line. Now, the one thing, and I say this whether we're drawing and coloring in a sphere or with the painting, is don't just go straight across. Kind of paint in the direction that it would be if you could see it as a solid ball. Okay? So think of it that way. Don't just go straight across. Try to come in here almost like you're painting like a round or a smiley face. Okay. So now once I've got to this line down below here, this part, this is really dry. So I'm having a hard time trying to get any of it to blend. So I'm going to go ahead and work from the top now. And just, this part is still wet, so let's fix this part and get that to look better. Now, this is obviously way too light, right? So I'm going to come in here with dark. And when I take a look at this, you know what, and it reminds me of a lot of the great examples you guys showed me, was this shadow and this should be pretty close as far as color. But this is the part that's challenging about the sphere, is that we don't want it to be black, and there's a very subtle change that happens in between this top and bottom. So I'm definitely going to have to darken up that edge, but I'm not going to deal with it just this second. I'm going to worry about this part in here. Okay, so I've got this. I'm going to drag some of this dark stuff up. I need some water because I can feel that my brush is sticky. And I don't know why I got a funky line in here that I gotta fix. Okay. So this one's going to take a lot more patience to kind of have to go back and forth and do this back and forth deal. So I know for sure that I need that bottom color to be a lot closer to this. So I'm going to scoop out some of this dark that I had, kind of mix it with some black. Because I know that this is way too light to be my shadow. And I already know I have to fix the shadow anyway. So I'm going to test that out over here and see. Yep, I like that for my shadow color much better. So since I'm already out here, I'm just going to fix the shadow color. Now my hope is that you've looked back at your other objects and that there's some consistency as far as the colors that you've made and the fact that they're all, you know, there's some kind of a theme going across it, and that the colors are very close, that like one doesn't look like super light, like a bright hot sun is beating on it, and then the other one looks super dark. Okay, I'm hoping that you've started to notice that as you've kept going and said, you know what, I got to make this one lighter or this one darker. Okay, so I'm just dragging in this dark color, and I'll show you how we're going to make it look nicer in a minute here. And then again, while I've got it, I just want to neaten up my shadow down here at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to wipe off my brush. And we're going to drag this dark kind of into that bottom part. And it's definitely going to go up the side more over here, because you don't want it to just stop. That's going to look weird if it just stops. Okay, so now I have a dark part. Now I'm going to go back to the first gray that I made and add that to it. Let's see if we can get these guys to blend together now, okay? So my goal right now is just to get everybody to blend. Okay, so I'm going to go here. And again, I'm trying to work with a little sense of urgency because I don't want things to dry out on me. And it's okay if I go right back on top of that really dark color that I made and then come around. I need some water, tiny bit. Okay. And you'll find too that you'll start to carry too much paint from other places, whether you accidentally dipped it in dark or white, and you're down here trying to work on dark stuff, and now all of a sudden everything got light because there's white on your brush. So it's okay to wipe your brush off anytime you want. Okay, so we got this we want to have be a smiley. Gonna be a smiley face down here. I need a tiny bit of water just to blend this edge. And a tiny bit of water to go in here. So I'm trying to run out this dark color that's hanging out. Now what I probably am going to have to do is go back to that medium color just a little bit. And I'm going to add that to it just to wet. All I'm trying to do right now is wet the edge. Like this. Wipe my brush off again. And then pull this out. Oop, water. Water to get everybody to kind of mix and play nice. And the whole point of wiping off your brush is just to get rid of that extra paint so that you don't need any more paint. You just need to take what you have and just get it to all hang out together. So now I'm just trying to soften my edge here. So what I might do is just put a tiny bit of my lighter color in here just to be wet and pull that back down to try to soften that line. So I've had to go back and forth from the light to the dark paint, back and forth and back and forth. And maybe a little bit of padding, what I mean, like going up and down, will help with some of the blending as opposed to constantly stroking. Okay? So that gives you an idea of kind of how to do that shadow on the bottom and kind of work its way back up into the sphere. Take a look at this, see what you think about it, and we should be all set.